guys. I'm really interested to learn more about him and how he got to where he was, and I hope you guys are too. So thanks, or Chris, thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me on. Been looking forward to this for a little bit.
Yeah, so just kind of tell us about your upbringing a little bit. Did your parents kind of pressure you into sports, or was it kind of more natural to you, like you enjoyed playing, sports with like neighborhood kids, or what was it like?
So originally I'm from San Diego, and to answer your question, I would say definitely not. It was just always something that I loved to do. Sure, my parents loved sports and everything like that too, but it was always very natural to myself and my brother. And having a younger brother playing in the same divisions as you and being a year below you, like you always kind of just get on the same team. It's always lots of fun to compete and do all that kind of stuff. But we always focused on baseball and football. My brother was better at soccer too. But like as far as sports would go, I mean, you're just like younger guys, especially just love sports. And it was the same thing with my brother and I.
Yeah, and I know, we all felt the same way. But I know, you loved baseball growing up. You played it for a while. So when it came to, kind of going on to college, what made you decide football over baseball? Was it tough to pick football because, like, your brother and you played baseball together for a while, or, how did you kind of decide there?
To a certain degree, the decision was made for me. So I got cut from the baseball team my junior year, and like I was devastated by it, but
Mhm.
I just got into the weight room and decided to make a good a good from a bad. And after that, I just kind of connected with football and started loving playing it. And sure, I wanted to play baseball as long as I could, but it didn't end up playing out that way as far as my senior year would go. So it
Mhm.
just kind of became, I knew as I developed in this kind of that new purpose at that time was becoming more and more like apparent. I knew that was going to be my path, and I knew I didn't want to be done with organized sports. Like I just couldn't be. So I decided, it's best that I obviously continue down this path for that reason. But there's a litany of other shit that came about because of or not my plan, God's plan for me.
Sweet, yeah, man. So like you said, you didn't want to be done with organized sports. Did you pick USC because like you knew you wanted to play there, or did you pick there because you wanted to go there, and then while you're there, like, hey, I'm gonna play something here, like?
Well, I should say that I have been a USC nut since the time I was like 6 months old. Like my dad, there's pictures of him reading me the newspaper, the sports page, and there's like USC on the cover of it. So it's always been one of those things where I dressed up for Matt Leinart for Halloween. My brother would dress up as Reggie Bush. Yeah, so it goes pretty deep. But yeah, I mean it's definitely a deep tradition. My dad definitely went to USC, but it wasn't one of those things where it was like travel ball kids going to all these tournaments and all this kind of stuff. We were very naturally gifted, I guess. So, and it wasn't like, okay, you guys are getting forced, you guys are going to this showcase or whatever when you're 11. So it was kind of just an organic development, but all the same time having such a passion for USC athletics in the school itself. So it was more like a lifelong kind of dream, more so than like, okay, I'm going to USC and I'm going to play sports there. It was like, all right, I know I can't go anywhere else other than USC just for my own, like, just because I couldn't commit anywhere else. So my heart couldn't let me do it. So SC is not a bad place to call home too. So it ended up working out really well.
Yeah, definitely.
So I know I've heard a lot of stories about walk-ons and how hard it is to become a walk-on and kind of the grind and dedication you have to put in before you even get a chance to walk on. So what was it that kind of kept you motivated through that kind of work before you were even on the team?
Good question. I would say that there are a few things. I might forget or I might miss on them, so I'm gonna try not to be too long-winded. But first of all, I would definitely say I definitely found my faith through it. So it's tough to like. I knew that I just never doubted myself, and glory to God for that. So it was just, that kind of kept me going down that direction for sure. I mean, another aspect definitely was all the kids who did doubt me, and I just couldn't let them be right. By no means can I let them be right. Like there are days where I would just feel so embarrassed talking about what I wanted to do because these kids I just knew they had something to say about it. And obviously SC is one of those places where it's like there might be a little bit of an ego thing to it. I mean, I try and check my ego as best I can, but I mean, playing football at USC is pretty legit. So I always thought like, damn, that'd be so cool. But the most impactful thing for me before I got to SC and what kept me going and working out all the time and seeing my receiver coach 2-3 times a week, 4 times a week actually, was just like I knew that I just knew that. It sounds weird, but I just knew that I was gonna make it. Like it sounds so weird, but I knew it. I never had a doubt in my mind.
Yeah, it's really good that you were so dedicated, towards that dream. But what kind of kept you going after like that senior year injury in high school? Because I know for me, like I know it's obviously not the same, but I was a cross country runner in high school, and like I dealt with a lot of injuries and stuff like that, and my motivation was just gone. Like it wasn't really there. So how did you kind of motivate yourself, after getting that injury? Like, did you think, oh, like this is kind of it, like, it's a lot to come back from, or, how did you keep yourself motivated?
So I would say that it took me a little bit, not because of the goal itself, but because I, as a person, wasn't ready or mature enough to focus on that. So I'd say that, okay, I got accepted to SC in June. I didn't walk on until August of 18. I tore my ACL in August of 15. So August 15, 16, 17, 18. So basically 3.5 years of just consistent, 2.5, 3 years of consistent training. So a lot of that physical development was more than accompanied by mental and emotional development too. I mean, when everybody's a senior in high school, they're kind of a dipshit, they're kind of like more obsessed with like partying. And for me, it was like, yeah, I had been a nerd most of 3 years of high school, but I broke into this new aspect of who I was at that time. And I was always going to clubs and stuff like that. So it really didn't become until I really got my gut checked in a few different aspects of my life in junior college. And that's where I began to develop and become much more mature. So it really didn't become super, super apparent or motivated or driven until I got to junior college and had gone through a little bit more adversity and learned from it.
Sweet. All right. So you said you got to check your ego sometimes, but let it roll. What was like one moment in sports you're like, yeah, dude, I'm the shit. Like did something like super cool, like just balled out?
That's a really good question. There are a few, and I'm going to try and there's actually, there's one for sure that stands out to me. So, and it's not like an ego one, but this is kind of like really one of those situations where I'm like, damn, I really made it. Whenever I was a kid, we'd go to SC practice every now and then. I went a couple times when I was like 5, 6, 7 years old, and we'd wait outside after practice and wait for the guys to come out. We would sign something, and back when it was like Dwayne Jarrett or John David Booty was there, like names that not a lot of people probably know. But when I was in my first year, we were playing Notre Dame that week, it was Notre Dame week. And I just remember these kids coming out and they're being like probably no older than me. And I'm thinking to myself, like, damn, those kids are me. And I went up to them and I signed their homework folder with like a pen. And I was just like, damn, dude, like that was where I'm like, holy cow, I really made it. And that was the coolest part. That was one of the cooler ones. And there are a number of like things where you're like, okay, I'm SC, you have USC football in your bio and you have all this stuff on Instagram and, you DM a lot of people and they DM you back. So there's a lot of those kind of situations, but the one that stands out to me for sure was by far the homework folder.
Chris, obviously it's hard to, even get a tryout, for the USC football team. I'm sure, there's obviously a lot of competition for that. And, you coming from junior colleges and, applying multiple times. So how did you kind of set yourself up for the opportunity to have the tryout?
I knew that my path was going to be best suited for me by way of just being relentless in my development personally, physically for sure, conceptually as far as football goes, and definitely like maturity wise, and so is faithfully. So I knew that I needed to become a different person in order to set myself up for the best chance that I could to, 1, get a tryout, and 2, make the most of my opportunity. So I was committed to myself, like gym all the time. I was a sickening gym rat, dude. Like I was with my receiver coach, like I mentioned, a whole bunch. I was watching like videos of Julio Jones all the time, dude. Like he's the guy who I wanted to emulate the most. I went in, this is actually, I never told this one publicly before, but I went to Staples and I got a regular binder. I got like a bunch of like a pack of like computer printer paper, and I bought a Sharpie. And I divided the page into, I think it was 3 per row. And I got like those sheets, like those plastic wrapping sheets to put your shit in. And after that, I took it back to the hotel we were staying at that time. And I looked up every route concept that there was in football. Because I had no real idea at that point. Like I really didn't know. I didn't know football that well up until that point. So I went on like all the Madden ones, and I was like looking up, and I'd draw the route concept, and I'd basically write, okay, X has this, Z has this, Y has this, blah, blah, blah. And I'd also write like, okay, I'd organize a lot of those. I'd do it again and again and again until I like memorized it. And then after that, I would organize them by way of which coverage they beat. So I would be like, okay, I draw another set of squares, and I'm like, okay, all these routes and all of these concepts beat cover 3, or they beat cloud, or whatever it is. So it kind of was setting yourself up in a multitude of different facets in order to be fully ready and fully prepared for the opportunity that, 1, you're not promised, and 2, the opportunity that you're not owed at all. So in order, so you got to get really clear about what you want, got to be super intentional, and then hope and pray and that all the work that you've done will pay dividends, because I guarantee you, if you put 10x effort into everything, the best result will happen.
Yeah,
so having to catch up. Oh, sorry, Dylan. Having to catch up so fast, having played baseball most of your life, and then kind of moving into football your senior year of high school, and then a much higher level of football at college. What is kind of did you get any negative opinions from like teammates having not had the kind of experience over the life that they had?
At my SC?
Yeah.
Not from. Oh. I'm not trying to throw people under the bus, but a lot of the walk-ons who I was a walk-on with, I'd say there were. I shouldn't say this, but here I'm gonna say it anyways. I didn't get along with a lot of the other walk-ons. I would say that I was tight with a good amount of guys, like I really was. But the kids who I didn't get along with, and I just say there were probably 4 or 5 of them, they were very similar in personality and maturity to the kids I went to high school with. And I didn't click with those kids either, because a lot of those kids just made fun of me, and they made fun of me when I was a nerd. They made fun of me when I was out and partying. So like, and they definitely made fun of my aspiration to go play at USC. So I didn't click with those kids because, for the same reason I didn't click with the kids in high school. So I got some shit from those kids just because naturally that's just how insecure people are. But as far as everybody else who knew my story, they thought it was such a amazing kind of tale of development and tenacity and all that kind of shit, that everyone was more commendatory rather than like trying to shit on it. I mean, you get some stuff from the other guys, but other than that, like more people were like, damn, that's fucking awesome, dude, as opposed to like, dude, what are you doing?
Absolutely.
So it was more the kids who were the kids who are, I guess, like me in a sense, similar to like walk-ons or whatever.
So you were, so you said like your freshman year or whatever, well, not freshman year, but your first year you redshirted as a tight end, and then you were back to wide receiver. Were you like extra beefy that year, or what changed?
So I always, like I said, I always played receiver. I really liked playing receiver more. But what happened was they needed a tight end for me to play. Like they needed tight ends. I was like, all right. They just said, Chris, you're playing tight end when they brought me on. And it's funny because both my receiver coaches who I'd worked with were like, Chris, you're going to play tight end. You're not playing receiver. I'm like, all right, I'll believe it when I see it. Next thing you know, I'm looking at my locker on my first day of practice. It said Chris Caulk, number 41, tight end. I'm like, shit. But at the same time, I'm like, holy cow, that's a USC locker with my name on it. Anyway, so so what happened was, after my first season, dude, I was like 210, and then by the end of the season, you're like 205 or something like that. because you just can't help but lose weight during the season. It's just the way it is. Anyway, so I'm playing tight end. I'm blocking guys who are in the NFL now and about 140 pounds heavier than I was. And it didn't really, I mean, I gave the best I could. I gave good looks, but I will say this, like, it's a tall order for just about anybody who's that physical dissonance, you know? But what happened was we were short receivers that year in spring ball. And I had just found out I just got a shot in my knee or something for some other shit. This is before my second surgery, well before it. But what happened was they were short, and the receiver coach was actually a tight end coach from the year before. So they moved KC, who's the now receiver coach, from tight end. And then he came up to me one day when we were both in the cold tub, and it was after morning walkthroughs on some random like Tuesday or Wednesday. And I'm sitting there, and KC comes up to me. He goes, "Hey, Chris, you always played tight end or what?" I'm like, "No, this is actually the first time I ever played it." And he goes, "So you're always receiver, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I was always a receiver." And he goes, "Well, I'm going to see if I can get you to come play receiver." And then I'm like, "Will you please do that for me?" I didn't beg like that, but I said, "You know what, KC, like, I'll play where you guys need me to play, but I'd much rather play receiver." I didn't go. Then that kind of got stuck in my mind. And then the whole rest of the day, I'm in class. I'm sitting there thinking, like, damn, I'd love to play receiver again. Like, I don't want to just keep blocking fools who are like 150 pounds heavier than me. So anyways, at dinner that night, I text KC. I'm like, "Yo, do you have a second to talk? I'd really like to talk to you." And he goes, "All right, sure. Meet me downstairs." So I meet him downstairs, and he's sitting there getting the shit together, ready to go. I'm like, "Yo, look, I'm gonna be honest with you. Like I said, I'll play where you need me to play, but if you really could put in a good word for me to play receiver, I would love to do it. Like, I feel like my skill set's better for there anyways." He says, "Yeah, I don't think it should be an issue. I'll bring it up in staff meeting tomorrow." And one day goes by, next day comes up, morning walkthrough. I'm still with the tight ends. At the end of walkthrough, Casey comes up to me. He's like, "All right, you're with us from now on." And I'm like, "Let's fucking go." Yeah, so that's how it kind of went.
Sick.
Hey, so Chris, just going back to, kind of, like your walk-on tryout, what were your immediate thoughts after the tryout? I mean, did you think you had any shot of making the team? What was kind of going through your head after the tryout?
From the way that my mentality was, obviously going in, was if I can put myself to be the person that they bring out, even if they only brought on one person, if they brought that one person on, I was going to put myself in a position where that person was me. So I kind of took that mentality, and the other kids who I walked on with, I'm tight with, or I was tight with at SC, but one of them just texted me today for my birthday. But basically, I was thinking to myself in a certain sense, like, F my competition, like, fuck these kids. Like, I worked way too hard, all that kind of stuff that you go in when you're thinking whatever, like, if you're being psycho about it, like, I don't want to even talk to you. That's kind of how it was. Mm-hmm. But after the tryout, I would say that my mentality was, all right, I didn't play as well as I know I could have. I still balled out. Like, it's just your mind will play tricks on you. And right. I was just kind of sitting there for 3-4 days, just really, really, really nervous. And my mentality was like, okay, I'm trying to walk on now. Like, they want me to walk on now. I mean, I could always walk on in the spring if all hell breaks loose, but that's what the original plan was. That's what they knew what my plan was. But at the same time, like, damn, if I got this close to my dream and it didn't work, I'd be sick. So that mindset, that mentality of mine, I gave it all I got. And after that, I was like, all right, I'm nervous, but they're going to happen in the way God wants it to. And it just so happened that was the time I got brought on.
Right. And 3 or 4 days seems like a long time to wait for a call.
It was the longest time period of my life.
I bet. But to kind of, because I'm a big movie nut, but when you got the call, did you ever like think of, the movie Rudy, where like, he tried, because, in a way you kind of have a similar situation where you applied multiple times and, you tried out for the team and then, you finally made it on your last shot. So was it kind of like a Rudy moment for you where you're probably just ecstatic?
That's a good question. That, it's funny. I haven't seen Rudy. I've never seen Rudy.
Wow.
I was looking, all your guys' faces fucking dropped right there. Every one of you guys. But no, I haven't seen it. But I posted a TikTok the other I'm sorry, that was an email. I still need to figure out how to mute this thing. Anyway, I was just sitting there and thinking to myself, after I posted this TikTok like a month or so ago, and everyone was commenting, this is like Rudy, this is like Rudy, this is like Rudy, and I got like 400 comments, like 60,000 plays, and they're all like, this is a lot like Rudy, and I'm sitting there like, I've never seen Rudy. I know the story and I know the general gist of it, but
right.
I wouldn't say I compared it to Rudy, but it was one of those like moments of just pure elation. So it was pure joy, and there's nothing compared to it, especially when you crush a goal as big as that one.
Right. Yeah. That must be a great feeling. But once you got on the team, you had some real big players on the team that you were on at the time. So like who are you like closest with on the team, and how did that impact your experience overall?
There were a couple guys I was really tight with. Like as far as guys in the NFL now, here's how I'll break it up. I'll break it up guys you guys definitely know about, then I'll say like guys who I was really tight with too. As far as guys in the NFL now, I'd say the closest by far was Michael Pittman. I posted a story of Michael the other day when he scored that touchdown on Sunday Night Football, and I was tight with Michael when we were there. He was a really good dude. I really like Michael. But guys who you may not know about, I would say that the closest kids that I would probably say a kid named Grant Jones, who was one of the original kids I walked on with. And it's funny because like him and I became super close, but at the same time when I was trying out, I'm like, there's no way this fucking kid's beating me out.
Right.
But I would have to say it was probably Grant Jones for sure. He's still there. And then other kid named Frank Martin, another kid, Dom Davis. I know I'm forgetting someone. I know I'm forgetting a few people, and I don't want, if any of them are watching this or listening to this, I don't want them to get offended, but like for sure I'd say it was Grant Jones. For sure.
Sweet.
And with being on, sorry, Dylan, I keep cutting you off, but with being on that big of a team, you have bowl games, you have travel games, and it's a big event. So what were some of your highlights of being on the team? Just favorite moments.
Favorite moments for sure. Sure. I would say that one of my favorite moments, no doubt, was walking onto the Coliseum the first time on the grass in the Collie. Like right when you get off the stairs and you're going in, I started fucking welling up when I was on the like the grass for the first time. Those times you can't beat, dude, especially when like it's a home game, the big team coming in, it's your Sunday or Saturday night kickoff, Friday night kickoff, whatever, whoever we're playing, you're making all these plays before the game. Another really awesome time is getting to play at my home stadium in San Diego at Qualcomm. That was my last game as a Trojan, and that was the last game before the stadium got destroyed. And that was the place where I actually watched my first football games. I watched the Chargers play there. So it was just amazing to go and watch and play in that game. And it was so amazing. Like those are some of the best experiences I've had for sure. First and last, actually, of all things.
So, Chris, I know, as a Division I athlete, you're obviously expected, a lot from your coaches and everything like that. And, we're all human, so, everyone's going to mess up. So what was kind of the most, I know this might be an odd question, but I'm interested to hear your answer. What was like the most brutal or like weird punishment that maybe you or your teammates got by like, when you guys messed up?
All right. Personally, the worst tongue lashing that I ever got was my first day on scout team. And at this point, I had just been brought on that week before. And that whole week before, it was a bye week. So I was like with the tight ends, like, so when you're on scout, you're kind of just like with the defense, like almost all the time. We're with periods of like 7-on-7 or whatever. You're not doing like routes on air that much. You're with the defense and you're running individual drills and all that kind of shit. So I was with the tight ends that whole week before, and I was completely new to the position, and I didn't know any of the routes, any of the formations, any of the anything. So my my first day. I was in like we were just doing formation recognition. They're like, all right, Dodgers, or Tigers, whatever it was. And then I'm sitting there like, where the fuck do I go? And so the guy who was the linebacker coach at the time, fucking psycho, he's not at SC anymore, but he said some of the fucking funniest shit, but it was the most off-colored stuff I've ever heard. Mm-hmm. Anyway, he just ripped me apart, absolutely ripped me apart. And it was the most embarrassing thing I have ever experienced. It was this, do you know what the f- you're doing? Do you know this? You know that? I'm like, dude, I have no fucking idea what I'm doing. I'm looking back at the scout team guys. I'm like, you got to tell me where I'm supposed to line up.
Yeah.
And it was, the guy was just ripping me a new one for that entire practice. And it was rough. And it was really rough. But the scout team guys came up to me, those coordinators, like, dude, I know, like, that is completely my fault that I didn't tell you anywhere to go. It's a terrible feeling, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. One of the weirder punishments I've ever seen, though, was one kid actually. He missed the fall showcase. And for instance, like, that's something you really don't miss. Like, no, for starters, you don't miss anything. You don't miss weights. You don't miss practice. You don't miss anything.
Right.
Even they class check you too. So like if you miss class, you're paying for it. Basically, this kid misses the fall showcase, which is a huge, huge deal. And they made him roll from the far end of the football field all the way, like this is probably about 200 yards. They made him roll every day from the far end to the other far end, back and forth for 2 weeks straight.
Oh my God. That's brutal.
After every practice. Five times a week.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, I couldn't even imagine being so tired after practice and then having to roll like 200 yards for 2 straight.
Oh, dude, it was hilarious. There's like, I'm sitting there laughing, like, dude, you don't miss shit.
Yeah.
Like,
did the team have to stay and watch him, or was that he just did it?
Oh, he just did it. Like, I mean, I always stayed after practice, and this one kid named Brad would always throw to me, or one of the managers would throw to me because I just like catching passes. Like, that's the one thing that I really, really loved about football is just catching passes. Like, when the ball is in the air, I'm like, there's a serious sense of dopamine coming through my head. So, like, I'd always just love to catch more passes, but catching balls after practice, kids rolling up and down the fucking field.
All right. My next question is, playing at such a high level, I talk about it a lot on the podcast, how important chemistry is for a team. So what was chemistry kind of like at USC? Were there cliques? Was the whole team close, or was it different, position groups?
I would say that there are definitely groups of guys who are closer than other guys, but that's just the nature of any organization group. I mean, guys resonate better with other people. Like, that's why certain people have certain friends, or other groups tend to stay together, Like, there's some like guys who are walk-ons who are in, I'm sorry, guys, who are in frats or whatever, and they do that kind of deal. There's guys who like live together, or, they're tight. They've been together since high school. So I would say that chemistry as a whole is pretty good out. I mean, as far as I knew of, there were no like real issues among groups. Like, I can honestly say that for certain, that there was no like feuding of groups or cliques. But as far as cliques go, I mean, there were people who were closer with other people than some people were. For sure. So that's just the nature of it. I mean, chemistry was overall pretty good, though.
And more for you. So what was your life kind of like outside of football? Like, were you constantly in the gym? Were you just a gym rat, constantly working on routes, or enjoying the party life at SC? What was your college life kind of like?
My college life very much happened before I went to college. So I was very much a partier, and that kind of part of my life really happened before. I've been coming up on 4 years of not drinking, but I was really like into clubs and all that scene when I was at JUCO and in my senior year of high school. So that came and went. I mean, obviously you go see people, but like who I was at SC, like I was living USC football. Like, I would always wear my shit out to go to dinner. You always get people to look, it's that kind of stuff. I mean, maybe it was a lot of it was pride. Some of it was probably a little bit of insecurity. I was like, damn, I want everyone to know, probably because everyone was so doubtful of me when I was in high school and junior college. So it was going out to dinner with my friends a lot, going to Korean barbecue. I mean, I was never really into partying after that, but it was just kind of doing that kind of stuff, like hot tubbing after stuff, like going to work out in the gym at my apartment. Like it was just kind of low key, I didn't really go out or do any of that stuff.
Gotcha.
Was it tough? Because I know you quit drinking, when you really started seriously training for USC. Was it tough, kind of seeing your friends kind of still living that, life, and, were you kind of not maybe doubtful, but, sad that you were kind of missing out on part of that?
My opinion on that kind of stuff is that I never like, I don't want to fucking get after this like this, but I never, FOMO is not a thing for me, because I know at least personally, my life and who I am and what I do is better now than it was back then when I was drinking. So it's not even a matter of like having any sort of like fear of missing out or like doubt or like maybe I should be drinking because I feel like it's gonna be much more fun. It never occurred to me that way, man. Like I knew that the best version of myself is the best version of myself is sober and like straight edge. And I know that I can accomplish just about anything. Like even when I still had big dreams when I was like drinking and partying, but like I knew that like getting after it and being relentless about who I was and what I wanted to be. Like I knew that I couldn't do that while I was pursuing USC and trying to get there. But while I was there, like I never had any issue or like that. I mean, people make their own choices. And it's like, you got to pay attention to your side of the street. And as long as you keep your side of the street clean with me, like, does it get annoying when people are like drunk and all over you? Yeah, it does. But that's really my only qualm with it. Personally, like, I don't really give a shit what people do. Like, or like people's like influence on me. It really doesn't, I'm not influenced by people like that.
Right. And yeah, that's, that's unlike most people, because a lot of people would, kind of let them affect that and, affect their drive. So it's really cool that, you didn't really let that impact you. But kind of to wrap up a little bit, because we're running out of time. So Chris, do you have any advice to, somebody trying to pursue, the dream that you were able to accomplish, or, someone just, trying to push to the next level of really any sport, I guess?
Yeah, for sure. If you're gonna go and do anything in this world of value, you've got to be unbelievably committed. You've got to be completely okay with the ups and the downs. You've got to be completely straight about running your own race, not being concerned about anybody else. A lot of people are going to be all over the place doing this, doing that. But if you focus on yourself, be super intentional about what your goal is, go in, day out, just being super committed to it, giving 10x effort, I promise you it will always result in the best action or results. It will result in the best results.
Yeah, I really like that, Chris. I want to thank you for joining the podcast today. Guys, feel free. I know Chris is pretty open, right, about, people DMing him about, certain stuff. So his Instagram will be in the description. So Chris, I just want to thank you, for coming on today. We haven't done a lot of interviews, but I think we want to start definitely doing a lot more. So thank you again for coming on.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.